Hello and welcome to art class today. Today I'll be demonstrating in super fast speed a method of painting portraits. So this is with oil paint, but I'm sure you could do it with other paints too. How I'm starting here is covering my white canvas, which by the way used to be a different painting, but I painted over it with white gesso so I could, because I didn't like the other painting and I like to move forward. Anyways, here I am sketching with a mix of burnt umber and I think it was yellow ochre to make an orange. And with that orange, I'm able to kind of sketch out, and I don't have to worry about any other colors. I'm just trying to get all of the proportions right, get the lines in the right area, and if I mess up, the cool thing about oil paint is I can just wipe away. But I suppose if you were working in acrylic too, you could just paint white over whatever your mistakes are. So this is a really efficient way of working, is just paint your painting in one color first, and then you move on to the next one. So once I'm just about happy with all of the construction here, I think, oh, that's pretty close to my model. I actually switch over to another color, which is Payne's Gray. And Payne's Gray is a sort of a bluish gray, but it's almost black. So I use that because this orange color I was using doesn't quite get dark enough. Though this Payne's Gray will get close to black. Though I'm using it with some paint thinner in there, which is actually odorless mineral spirits I'm using. And here I am. I'm just carefully trying to, as good as I can, be correct in where these dark shadow shapes are. So when I'm working with a reference, I'm looking at the shadow shapes, which I've included my reference in the picture you can see on the left. Those dark areas on his shoulders and on his hat, anything that's black, essentially, I'm painting dark. And now I'm actually mixing a little bit of that orange with the Payne's Gray to get a medium tone to make all the shadows on his face, the shadows on the shirt. A good way to kind of notice what the shapes, or at least what the color areas are, like where's the darkest area, where's the lightest, and then what's in the middle, is to squint your eyes down. Just enough so that your eyelashes kind of blur your vision. You don't have to go all the way squinted down, but just to where it gets hazy because of your eyelashes. That will blur out a lot of detail and allow you to see things a little bit reduced and simplified. So I'll do that and notice I try to even split into 3. Here's at my finished drawing stage. I did quite a bit of work with the camera. I accidentally didn't turn it on, but here's it finished. Anyways, you can use your eyes squinting to see these big blocks of color. I usually use 3, the darkest darks, which is black, the lightest lights, and then something in the middle. Now I've switched to color here with a mixture of blue and white, and then instead of just keeping one color mixture, I actually add a little bit of yellow at the top right, and I think a little bit of red towards the middle to make almost a little bit purplier, and only trace amounts of these colors to change the blue, just so it's not one color in the background. It's got a kind of a more interesting fade of color. And here I am using pretty much just pure ultramarine blue right out of the tube. I've added dark, I think I added some red and some Payne's Gray into the dark areas. But on his shoulder there, that's ultramarine blue right out of the tube. And I'm learning that colors right out of the tube are the most saturated, which means they're the most colorful. If you add white, you get brighter colors, but they get a little bit grayed out. So I'm trying to use this pure color. You have to be kind of sparingly because it's so bright, but I try to use it when I can. Here's another example of it right here on the shoulder with the I believe it's called Alzurian alizarin crimson, which is a red, almost a purplier red. And so I use a little bit of pure red and I use a little bit of pure blue. And then that pure Payne's gray for the hat as well. But those first stages kind of mix together, the orange with the gray. And I think that gives us a nice warm, more natural look than if I used pitch black. Alright, so here I am doing a lot of work to really try to make it look like my subject, Corey. And how I do that is just by making sure my shapes of color are correct. So I look for, the shape of the bright spot on his nose, and I try to get that right. Or I get the shadow on his cheek. I notice, oh, that's a little bit too thin. I need to make that shadow a little bit wider. So on. I noticed I forgot a color in the shirt. I went blue and red stripes, and I totally forgot this tealish color. So I wiped away a few areas with a paper towel and added it on top. Here's me fixing the rim of the hat, really making sure that dark is nice and dark. I wanted the contrast to be pretty high on this portrait, because past portraits of mine, they've gotten a little bit gray in the face, especially because I don't use bright enough colors. I mix too much white in. So I'm trying to be careful not to mix too much white in this time, because I'd rather have a extra colorful face than a, ghostly, bleached out face because I use too much white. Because again, every time you use white, it takes away the color. You're removing color while you make it brighter. So yep, just doing a bunch of work on his glasses, getting that lip corner correct. Lip corners are tricky because in this picture he has such a subtle smile that if I go straight down, it'll look like a frown. If I go up, it'll look like a cartoony smile. So usually a smile's almost like a down and then up on the curve of the mouth. So I'm trying to match it exactly to where it's just ever so slightly coming back up into the smile. Such a subtle look. Notice the tree in the background. I did that just with pretty much pure sap green, and then I added little bits of white or yellow into it, and then Payne's gray in the darks. My posture here is getting in the way of the camera, but I'm just doing a bunch of touch-up areas in the face and in the shirt and in the background. I try to kind of work everything at once instead of doing one thing at a time. So instead of just doing, the shirt, I'll see where else I can add that red and the blue from the shirt, maybe somewhere else in the painting. Those dark colors like blues, you can throw right on top of blacks to kind of give black a little bit more depth. It's really starting to look like Corey here. But I have some work to do. I've got that light line that I just did on the hat. I take a lot of time not painting. You don't really notice it in the time lapse, but there's a lot of time of stepping back, looking at the painting, looking at my picture, asking myself, what's different? What is different between my picture and the painting? Oh, I noticed that I didn't quite get dark enough in my shadows on the lips and elsewhere on the face. So in this section, I'm sort of trying to increase the contrast, which means darkening the darks, adding some really bright whites where I can. I try not to hit pure white until pretty much the very end of my painting process, just because you can't get any brighter than white, so you have to be careful with it, because too much of it will make everything else look too dark or not balanced. So you can see I'm slightly darkening some of those shadows on the face. And you can see how much I'm also looking and not painting at this stage, because I'm so close, yet there was a few things that sort of just bugged me about the painting. Like weren't quite right. There's something off, so I had to do a lot of searching for what that is. His slight mustache stubble going off to the side was too much at an angle. That line I think I just did helped a lot, where I defined the chin and I defined the cheek on the side. Even though that line isn't there in real life necessarily, it sort of helped that side pop out, the ear disconnect from the cheek a little bit, because before they almost seemed they connected in a funky way. Yep. Okay, so the I know I'm getting close when I start doing the reflections in the glasses. These are really fun. I actually really like doing reflections in glasses because they don't need to be exactly correct, and they're so powerful. Like just a couple white dots or like a line of bright blue across because of the sky reflecting off his glasses will really make them look like glass. And it doesn't really take much. All you have to do is look at your subject very carefully. If you're looking at a picture like this one of somebody with glasses or a window or whatever, look very carefully at what shapes are reflected and also what brightness. They won't be pure white. They'll be darkened a little bit by the glass. But they'll be pretty bright and high contrast, because any dark colors are just will get really dark, or see-through rather. You're not really seeing the dark colors, you're just seeing light reflected back at you. Here I am adding some lights into the neck and into the ears. Do a little bit of work I want to add depth to these bushes, so I'm adding that Payne's gray, maybe even a little bit brown or dark green, and just especially further back in the bush, adding some of those dark colors, because dark colors will really push backwards as bright colors kind of come forward towards you. Now here I am signing my name, so that's the end of the process here. It's a little bit tricky because the paint was so thick and wet that I was like having trouble getting my name to show up, so I had to do a few layers actually of signing. And here's the final product. Hope you enjoyed that talk through. And I really encourage you to try painting a portrait in this way, where you draw something that you like first, not just drawing with line, but actually kind of shading as you would with a pencil. But try it with some paint. Maybe if you don't have oil paint, maybe just one color and white, or maybe one color and white and black. And then once you get that how you like it just right, then add color on top so you can use it as a guide. Anyways, I hope you have a good week.